You're listening to the Literary Entrepreneur Podcast, episode 25. Welcome to this edition of the Literary Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Howard Moody, and I am delighted to join you once again for what I'm calling the Authorpreneur series. It started with a book that Sharon Jenkins just released called Will the R.E.A.L, Authorpreneur Please Stand Up. In the book, she includes stories from 13 contributors who are great in the world of understanding the business behind writing. So tonight we're going to be talking to one of those contributors. So we'll be talking to Tom Blubaugh. He is a public speaker, has been a public speaker for over 40 years, and he's currently known as a literary strategist, working one-on-one with authors and writers in all aspects of the publishing business, which includes book marketing. So we're going to jump right into the interview with Tom, and I want to say welcome to the Literary Entrepreneur Podcast, Tom.
Thank you, Tyra. It's very nice to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. So I'm real informal. I just like to jump in and kind of get to know people. So as the first question, tell us, what do you like to do on your free time when you're not focused on writing or book marketing?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm a movie nut. I'm always up for a good movie. I like to spend social time with friends. My wife and I are active in a Vietnam Veterans of America group. I have no problems filling my time.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm one of those people, I don't like to be bored, so I'm always finding something creative to do. So that's really easy. I'm glad to hear that. So, movies, have you seen any of the summer blockbusters? You said you are a movie nut. Well, anything interesting that you've seen recently?
I watch them after they go to DVD. We have a theater here in town that plays movies that have gone through their first run. And the last one I saw was Woman in Gold, which was an excellent movie. And I think that's it.
Okay, awesome. Well, this is good. I'm always looking for authors. You know, they always tell us we should be definitely reading, but also we should have some other hobbies and things that we should be doing as well, kind of open our horizons. Well, when I was reading your bio, Tom, I thought it was awesome. You have mainly been a nonfiction writer, but something interesting happened in 2011. You published your first novel at the age of 69. So I was curious to know, how did that come about? When did you decide that you wanted to switch over to fiction?
Well, that goes back to 2005, the year that my mother passed away, and I suddenly realized that I only had one aunt who was older, and she was in the beginning stages of Alzheimer's, and so I felt like it would be fairly soon that I would be the oldest on my mother's side of the family, which is what happened. My grandfather died a year before I was born in the same hospital where I was born. We missed each other by 11 months, and I knew very little about him and was able to find very little about him out through my lifetime. And I'd asked my mother questions, and she said that her recollections didn't agree with her sister's, and so everybody just kind of kept it to themselves. And after she passed away, I decided that I wanted to put together a story about my grandfather so that I could pass his legacy on to my children, grandchildren, and on down through the line. And so I interviewed my aunt to the best of my ability, and I'm glad that I did. And although she couldn't give me a whole lot of information, I ended up with 4 or 5 facts that when I researched history they were accurate, and I was off and running. And the end result was that I wrote a novel about or historical fiction about my grandfather. And it brought me some closure, and it brought a person that all of those coming after me could identify with.
So what's the name of the novel again?
The name of the novel is The Night of the Cossack.
Setting, what state or where is it set at?
This is set in the early 20th century. He was born in Georgia on the Black Sea. He was a Cossack soldier. He was a Jew. And something happened in the company that he belonged to that he knew he was going to get blamed for, so he defected and came to the United States. And so my story is started at his age 18, and I created that story.
That is an awesome legacy for your children and your grandchildren and generations to come to remember him by. That sounds like a great opportunity to have had. Well, I want to ask you a question about, we're going to jump a little bit into bookmarking, because I always thought I would start out writing nonfiction, but I started off with fiction first and then later on moved back into nonfiction. What have you found? Are there any differences, really big differences between marketing fiction versus nonfiction?
Not so much a difference in marketing, but it's a difference in buyers. If somebody's looking for a fiction book, they are usually looking for someone that they are familiar with or someone who is well known, and they're looking for someone who has written more than likely more than one novel. When it comes to nonfiction, they're looking more for a topic than they are an author. So it's the branding of your name is not quite as serious as it is if it's a fiction. Still important, though.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And as a literary strategist, you work one-on-one with authors and writers. What are some of the services if someone's looking for help with they're just starting a book or they finished it? What are the types of services that they can go to you for help?
Okay. First of all, unfortunately, most of the people I work with have written a book and then they don't know what to do with it. They hope to be able to sell, but they really haven't thought it through. Very rarely do I get someone who contacts me before they start writing the book. Technically, it's best if you have at least a year before the book is released. It's kind of like having a baby, Tyra. Of course, I haven't had one, but I have two sons, and and I know what that involves. But nobody has the baby and then go home and puts the nursery together and prepares a family. That's all done beforehand. So everyone is excited and expecting the baby's arrival, and it should be the same way with a book. And so having a year to plan and prepare and market and promote makes all the difference in the world.
I definitely agree with that. With several books of my own, some I have marketed better than others, and the timing of it definitely does make a difference. Now, I like to talk a lot about online presence on the literary entrepreneur because that's something I kind of jumped into. I don't know about you, but when social media kind of came on board and when it started to grow popular, I wasn't too sure I wanted to join, but once I did, I kind of took to it like a duck in water. I noticed that you have a bit more presence, or maybe just because I've noticed, but you're on Google Plus, where a lot of authors are not. A lot of authors seem to love to be on Facebook. But do you find that there's some differences in Google Plus versus Facebook that are better, or you just seem to like that platform a little better?
I love Google Plus. LinkedIn is actually my favorite platform.
Okay.
I have Facebook down at the very bottom. The thing I like about, let me get my thoughts straight here, about Google Plus is that there are no restrictions on who you can place in your circles. You don't have to know the people. And I can go on and do a search for Christian authors or historical fiction authors or about any kind of a search I want to do and target those kind of people and bring them into my circle. And then I can work at developing a relationship with them. I can do somewhat the same on LinkedIn and Twitter. I don't have that freedom on Facebook. I started out developing my market on Facebook, but I probably broke every rule that Facebook has about contacting people. And so I got in trouble with them on more than one occasion, and then finally Google Plus came along.
Yeah, Facebook has become more restrictive, especially at some point where business pages were highly, everyone you had to have a page where people can like. But once you set up your page and you got all these people liking your page, and their algorithm kind of set into place where people don't exactly see your posts anymore unless you boost your posts. I mostly use Facebook for the groups. That's kind of where I build my relationships, is I have my own groups and then some other groups. But I'm trying to lean more towards Google Plus a little more, and LinkedIn, because I'm finding that those platforms I've kind of been missing out on. I think other authors are too, especially LinkedIn, because of the publishing platform that they opened up a few months ago. I just kind of been sitting on it. So, and you said it's your favorite. What are some things about LinkedIn that have drawn you to it as a platform to use?
LinkedIn seems to have people who are more serious. They're not as involved in what I had for lunch or what I did over the weekend, that kind of thing. There are people on there looking for jobs, and there are people on there looking for help. Again, I can target specific markets on there. And LinkedIn has a lot of good things that you can do. I always recommend to my clients to get on Facebook, which is owned by Google, and but I tell them to research all the social medias on there, because there's thousands and thousands of videos that are very helpful on how to use each platform. They're all different. They all have a unique purpose. And when it comes to LinkedIn, it's more effective if someone has a service to offer, as I do, more so than if I'm trying to sell a book. On all of them, Tyra, the hard selling doesn't work. We are in a world now where people are interested in relationships, and it's a giving kind of a thing. So you have to give 90% of the time and promote yourself only 10% if you're going to build a strong market.
Yes, I agree. And that's why I like to reach out to you and other entrepreneurs, as well as some of my clients. I always tell them, once you become a client of mine, you pretty much are always going to get my support. So I have groups where we work together to share each other's content. So it's not all about, just you promoting your book, but you're showing other people about other people's books or sharing things that you've seen in the publishing industry, some news, So, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Bringing people value oftentimes will attract readers and definitely clients for your services in the future. So speaking of authorpreneurs, you're a part of the Will the R.E.A.L Authorpreneur Stand Up compilation that just released, I think it was about 2 weeks ago now. What led you to become a contributor to that anthology?
I have to think. I met Sharon Jenkins probably about a year or so ago through a Google Plus group, Christian Authors Community. I was a moderator. And Sharon and I made a connection, and I was involved on a radio program with Tony Marino. He was the owner of that community. And I don't know, she and I just connected, and over a period of time, we did some other things together, and she told me about this book, asked me if I would like to be a contributor, and I said yes, and that's what happened.
Tell us about your piece that you contributed, just a little bit. What was the title of it, and a little summary of what you talked about?
Well, I think that Sharon titled that chapter that I was Russian writing maverick. That may not be exact, but it's close. And I basically told my story about, my writing and how I started and how I progressed, and how I melded 40 years of marketing with book marketing, which book marketing is the toughest thing that I've ever tried to do. It's highly competitive. And I don't know, I just shared my story.
Okay, and we look forward to reading that. Will the R.E.A.L Authorpreneur Stand Up? Definitely want to check out Tom Blubaugh's story as well as many, many others. There's a total of 13 contributors in that book. And I'll have information about the book as well as more about Tom's book, Night of the Cossack. I don't know how I'm saying that, Night of the Cossack. I want to include that in the podcast notes when I publish that, coming up very soon. So, Tom, where can people find you online? What are some of the sources we talked about? You're on LinkedIn and Google+. What's your official website?
My official website is tomblubaugh.net, and that's spelled Blubaugh. If you do a search for literary strategist, the last time I looked, I'm the number one that pops up, so I'm not hard to find.
Well, that's really good. That's really good. So before you leave for the podcast, and I do want to thank you again, you said earlier that a lot of authors, they're just not prepared for the book marketing aspect after writing a book. What are at least two things you think an author should try to concentrate on within that you said about a year before their book releases? Well, there's at least two things that they should focus on for their book marketing.
Okay, the first thing, Tyra, is their target market.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time when I ask an author who they've written the book to, the answer is the world. And my response to them is that in the last Super Bowl game, advertisers spent $4.5 million for a 30-second ad to try to reach 200 million people. Mm-hmm. What do you think it would cost to reach 7 billion? And nobody has that much money. Well, I mean, very few do. And so the world cannot be your market. So I have them do a lot of different things, close their eyes and picture the person they're writing to, or get a magazine and flip through the pages till they find the person that that represents who they're writing to, and even take that picture out and put it in a frame and put it beside their computer so when they're writing specifically to that person. And because it makes a difference if you're writing to people in a metropolitan area versus a rural area, whether they're highly educated or not highly educated, whether it's a foreign market or a domestic market. So all those things are important. But knowing who you're writing to, that is important. Then they have to know where they're going. They have to have a vision for the future. And I tell them that there are three kinds of people. There are those that have a vision that is so big that it just overwhelms them and stops them dead in their tracks. Then there's the kind of person who gets so caught up in the details that eventually they can't see the forest for the trees. But the third person is aware of the details and works on them, but they look through the details to the picture and they never let go of the vision. So a mission statement goes along with that. But they have to know who are they writing to and where are they going.
Those are good. Very good. Thank you so much, Tom, for spending a little bit of time talking to us on the Literary Entrepreneur Podcast today. I'm so excited to be able to talk to you and to be able to share this podcast very soon.
It's my pleasure, Tyra. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you once again for listening to the Literary Entrepreneur Podcast. You can listen to the official podcast feed on the literaryentrepreneur.com or subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud.com, Spreaker.com, or you can find us on YouTube.com. Just as a reminder, I want to let you know before you leave us for today that you're more than an author. You are a literary entrepreneur. Writing and marketing books is a business. Let's learn how to attract readers to your books together.